Well, I've got a batch of citric acid mixed up, and it's in a pretty good sized container. I've got some room, and I've got this Columbia scale that seems to work, but it could use a little rust removal. We'll go ahead and throw it in there, give it a couple days, and see what it looks like. After 2 days, 2.5 days, give or take, in the citric acid, this has worked out pretty well. I know that if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know what I'm talking about. I've showed it before, but again, this is citric acid. It's pretty cheap. I think on Amazon, I think this container was $8. I would guesstimate that you could make 5 to 10 gallons of Evaporust type stuff with this. It worked well here. If you leave it in too long, it'll develop some sort of something precipitates out and creates this little stalagmite kind of chowder on here. It's a little bit tough to get off, but the scale works actively. You know, there's everything seems to be fine with it, but of course we've got to doctor it up a little bit. So I've got to get these screws worked loose and take a better gander at what's going on with this. And ideally, my goal is to get this painted and polished up so that it looks nice again. I don't know if there was ever glass that went on the front of that, but with or without, I think it'll look nice painted and polished up. I'm sure that most people know this, but in case you're new to the restoration world, there's really nothing better than a little bit of heat to help break up that, you know, chemical bond, that physical and chemical bond that's going on there. When you heat it up, there's insurmountable forces that are going to act upon the different metals and break some of that bond that's in there. So I'm going to sort of come at it from a couple different angles, being able to impart force in it quickly with the impact gun. I'm going to put some heat on it, and I'm also going to use a little bit of PB Blaster, or you could use some 50-50, anything to try to work to your advantage to get that broke loose, because in this case it's probably been in there for 100 years or so, and I'll be lucky to get it out in one piece. Well, there you go. That worked out horribly. I just completely wiped the top of that screw off. And that is not ideal. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to have to fiddle around with this for a little bit and figure out what kind of approach I can, where to go next. Because it moves, I don't want to break anything on the internal. I don't know if I have to disconnect it from the inside, perhaps. I don't know. I just don't know. That's what I do with these things. I make it up as I go. This is where things escalate quickly. I'm going to try to drill out the top. I only needed to get it to release, and hopefully once I can see the screw, I can get a set of, like a little pipe wrench on there or something. They seem to be in the center of it there. I'm going to have to drill that out. For that, I'm going to get some left-handed drill bits. I don't use them often, and I don't know what happened to my other set, but I was able to buy this small set of 5 for $8 or something like that. But it's important that you differentiate them so they don't get thrown in that other miscellaneous drawer and you're never to find them. They're really hard to look for. Now is the point when it's easy to fall victim to the tool, the marketing wank that's out there. And if you have a bolt that you've drilled out successfully and you need to extract it, you don't always have to go down and buy an extractor. I tend to prefer these 4-sided ones. That was until I'd watched, I don't know who to credit it to, but somebody started using these Torx bits as extractors. And I think this is a variation on what Snap-on actually sells, a very expensive set. These they're not free, but they're pretty cheap, and in a pinch, I'm more than happy to go ahead and sacrifice one for the good of the project. In this case, for demonstration purposes, see if I can get that to back out of there. Well, the easy out didn't want to work. I got lucky with that. Now, one of the worst possible scenarios that could happen is the nut split right in two of you. Like, there was a regular panhead bolt or nut, or a bolt, and it just sheared right half clean in two, as they say. So I'm going to try to persuade it back with the drift and not damage anything. I don't know if we'll get any of this on footage. Yeah. I don't know if there's some sort of fault in the metal. Never had one break like that. I must have jinxed myself. I just bought these left-handed bits not too long ago. And usually I can count on one hand the amount of times I've needed in the last year that I've needed these. And all of a sudden twice in one project. Yeah. I'm going to make a slightly educated guess that this is threaded and it has been peened over to retain this knurled nut that's on there, very thin knurled nut. I've tried heating it and grabbing onto it with some plastic pliers, which is, it's a tough, thing to follow because you can't get it too hot that you can't grab it with the plastic so the plastic doesn't melt, but you want to get it hot enough to move. So because it's peened over, I think I'm going to take a file and try to wipe the top of this off. And hopefully that will give me some latitude to unscrew that, remove this gauge or this indicator. Nah, it's still the same day. I couldn't go. Couldn't go. Can you see that? Where's this? I can't tell if you can see that or not. There's a square in there, which means that I'm trying to unscrew a square interference fit. I don't need to screw this off. I need to pry it off. So if I'm anything, I'm a hypocrite. There I go talking about like not needing to have specialized tools for anything. Well, I was struggling and I went to go digging around. I thought I had a pinion puller, and I do have a pinion puller. That pinion puller happens to fit perfectly on there. This might work. Ha! Look at that. Look at that. That worked perfectly. I learned something new every time. Now, it wasn't pretty. I had to get on those with the vice grips because I didn't seem to have any other option. And that happens. I mean, it just did happen. So, there's a right way to get it done, and then there's, sometimes Joe's way. And no harm, no foul. I should be able to clean that up okay. And if I'm right, should be able to back this out of here now. So I can begin to clean this up properly and free this up so that it works nicely. It seems to be a little bit I have a feeling it should probably work on its own. I went ahead and put these back in the evaporust for another day, but it's leaving that oxide on there. And it comes off with a lot of scrubbing, but I'm going to go ahead and sandblast these, and that should give me a nice clean surface to put a high fill primer on. I want to try to remove some of the little divots that are in here. It's not going to be perfect because of the rust, but it'll be better than it is. I have the this area, I sandblasted these and then primed them, but you can see some imperfections on the top. I think I'm gonna, I just googled it, apparently I can use the glazing spotting putty on top of primer, so I think I'm gonna try that. So I did the spotting putty on the body and the base. On the top section, I'm going to use the under rubberized bed liner to go around these corners, and I think that'll make a nice contrast. And then I've got some green foam that's going to go on the inside of this. I think that's going to be a good mechanism to cover up all the, this must have had a higher carbon content because of the pitting in there, but I think that'll do a good job covering up all those blemishes. It's been about 24 hours and it's dried up on there. For all the tools I have, you would think I'd have a nice assortment of sandpaper, and I don't. I have like two kinds of sandpaper. I've got stuff that goes on pneumatic things, and they have like 1,000 grit. They're like there's no middle ground in my shop. I'm gonna have to dig around. You know, I'll find something, but I'm a very impatient person. So I like heavy grit sandpaper, you know, the 50 and 60 grits, and of course that's not conducive to what I'm doing now. So I'm going to dig around and find something to sand this down with, and that should get me to the next step where I can get ready to paint. Like one of these pumice stones, it's not sandpaper, but I sort of like it because it contours to the shape that I'm working. And provides a nice even finish. I have a little bit more touch-up work to do on that, but I think it did an excellent job of leaving the stuff that I filled in with the glazing compound. So I have the body cleaned up now. I'm going to clean the internal parts. I'm just going to wire wheel these and polish them on the fiber wheel. More often than not, it's the simple things that you get caught up on. I've wasted a piece of fabric so far trying to freehand cut the top of this, and I'm just not talented enough to do that. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that can. I'm not one of them. So what I'm going to do is trace this out on the inside of a cereal box, and then I'm going to subtract the width that I need for this little lip. I don't know if you can see that, because ideally I want this to sit down just inside that relief. I've got the dividing head here. I'm going to just trace the inside of this around as best as I can. Now for me it's been about a week. But for you, it's only been a couple seconds since I've had to drill the bolt out of the top of this. I found a bolt that'll work, but I need to cut it. And one of the often underused tools is the cutting tool in the vice grip. In the jaws there, it's pretty substantial. So now I cut that bolt off and I can just sand that down, clean it up, and we'll use that. So that's the Colombian scale cleaned up. it's really neat, these old scales. It's not the best quality. The only thing that's redeeming about it is that brass face on it. Because it's stamped steel, it's not like a cast iron one. I've got some other scales that are really interesting, but this was in my way, and I figured it's got to get done sooner or later. So I'm pretty happy with it. I hope you guys, got something from it. If there's anything to, be careful with these things, is to, it's easy to get tricked with these things, and having the right tools is, sometimes a necessary thing. That pinion puller really saved me in this case. And, well, let me go ahead and show you some of the other scales I got. So I've got this giant scale here on the ground. It's 2 feet tall. Well, maybe not 2 feet tall, but every bit of 30 inches tall. It's pretty neat. I think it functions. It's just missing some of the glass. Got this old American cutlery scale. That's going to be a treat to do that one. I'm really looking forward to restoring that at some point. And I've got another. Again, the shop's a disaster, but this old scale looks like it could be a lot of fun, and I think there's another scale hidden behind there. So it's just a disaster. I need to figure out what I'm doing with these things. I've restored this one before, but I didn't have a face for it, so I just printed it out, and I was never really happy with that. That's why this never really went anywhere. That's not a good solution for this. But we're doing scales. It can be fun, and hopefully I get some more time to do that. I have not made a lot of videos lately. One of the reasons why is because I've been preoccupied with chickens. I've really enjoyed having the chickens so far. It's been a real treat having them. They're a lot of fun. They're cute as all get out when they're this small. And when they're grown up, it's raining. I can't show you the big chickens. But they're just pleasant to have around and fun to watch. But I'm hoping to get some more time in the channel. So I thank you guys for watching and subscribing, leaving any comments you might have. Thanks for watching.